Imagine a sprawling, opulent empire, constantly beset by enemies, yet fiercely defended by a cadre of warriors so legendary. Their very name struck fear into the hearts of its foes. These were not native sons, but fierce foreigners, bound by oath and unwavering loyalty to an emperor thousands of miles from their northern homes. They were the axe-wielding giants, the axe-bearing barbarians, in the very heart of civilization, the elite personal guard of the Byzantine emperors. They were the Varangian Guard. For over 4 centuries, from the 10th to the 14th, this formidable unit stood as the bulwark of Constantinople, renowned for their devastating two-handed axes and unparalleled combat prowess. But who were these enigmatic warriors? Why were they so uniquely powerful? And what eventually became of this legendary force? Join us as we unravel the captivating saga of the Varangian Guard. To understand the Varangian Guard, we must first journey back to the Byzantine Empire, a realm of unparalleled wealth and sophistication, but also one of constant internal strife and external threats. It was a world where emperors often found themselves vulnerable, not just to foreign invaders, but to the machinations of their own powerful aristocrats and ambitious generals. The formal establishment of the Varangian Guard in 988 CE was a direct, calculated response to this volatile environment. It wasn't a sudden invention, but the culmination of a long tradition of employing foreign mercenaries. The pivotal moment arrived when Emperor Basil II, facing a severe internal rebellion and external pressures, forged a crucial military assistance agreement with Grand Prince Vladimir I of Kiev. Vladimir dispatched a formidable contingent, 6,000 warriors, primarily Norsemen, and Rus, who would prove to be the foundation of this elite unit. However, the presence of these Varangians, a name derived from the Old Norse Varanga, meaning sworn man or oath man, in Byzantine service, predated this formalization. Rus mercenaries had been fighting for the Byzantines as early as 874 CE, a result of earlier treaties obliging them to provide military personnel. These early mercenary bands participated in a variety of campaigns, daring naval expeditions against the Emirate of Crete, an Italian expedition, and brutal conflicts against Arab forces in Syria. During this nascent period, they were often integrated into a broader mercenary corps known as the Great Companions. But what truly set the Varangian Guard apart was the deliberate and highly tactical decision by the Byzantine emperors to recruit distant foreigners for their personal guard. This wasn't merely about finding strong fighters, it was a profound political strategy. Unlike native Byzantine guardsmen, who often harboured local political loyalties, family ties to influential factions, or personal political ambitions, the Varangians were outsiders. They were detached from the intricate web of Byzantine power struggles. This made them inherently loyal to their paymaster, the emperor, rather than to any internal faction. They became a completely reliable force for suppressing revolts initiated by disloyal Byzantine factions, a stark contrast to units like the Praetorian Guard of the Western Roman Empire, who famously became kingmakers and a constant source of instability. Their foreignness was not a secondary characteristic, it was their primary qualification. It meant their allegiance was primarily to the imperial office itself, ensuring they would execute orders without hesitation, even those involving the arrest of powerful aristocrats or high-ranking church officials. This policy directly addressed a persistent political vulnerability within the Byzantine Empire, the constant threat of internal coups and factionalism. The Varangians were the ultimate trump card against disloyalty, but why would these fierce northern warriors leave their homes for a distant, sun-drenched empire? The answer lies in a powerful combination of cultural allure and tangible opportunity. To Scandinavians, Constantinople, or Miklagard, the Great City, as it was known in their sagas, held an almost mythical status. Serving the Greek king was perceived as a source of immense prestige, honour, and adventure. This romanticised image, combined with the very real prospect of immense wealth and unique privileges, encouraged a consistent flow of recruits for centuries. The desire to serve was so strong that a medieval Swedish law, the Västgötalagen, was even enacted to curb emigration to Greece. This wasn't a simple employer-employee relationship. It was a convergence of distinct political and cultural drivers. The Byzantines weren't just hiring mercenaries. They were tapping into a deep-seated cultural phenomenon of seeking fortune abroad, leveraging the legendary image of their capital to attract elite warriors. This symbiotic relationship ensured a sustained flow of recruits, even as the Guard's ethnic composition evolved. It also facilitated a fascinating cultural exchange, with Byzantine influences appearing on Scandinavian runestones, tangible proof of this cross-cultural connection. While the Varangian Guard was initially dominated by Norsemen and Russes for its first century, its ethnic composition underwent a significant transformation, especially after a pivotal event in Western Europe, the Norman conquest of England in 1066 CE. With their homeland conquered, a substantial number of Anglo-Saxons and Danes, having endured the brutal consequences of Viking and Norman incursions, emigrated en masse to the Byzantine Empire. We know that over 5,000 arrived in 235 ships in 1088 CE alone. Those who didn't enter imperial service even settled and garrisoned the town of Helenopolis on the Black Sea coast. By the late 11th century, particularly under the reign of Emperor Alexios Komnenos, the Varangian Guard largely comprised these Anglo-Saxons and other Germanic peoples. They brought with them a shared tradition of faithful, oath-bound service, a quality highly valued by the Byzantines. Their importance grew to such an extent that the Guard was frequently referred to as the Englyn Barangoi, or Anglo-Varangians. Despite this major demographic shift, there were later instances of renewed Norse recruitment, notably when King Sigurd I of Norway, a grandson of the famous Harald Hardrada, permitted his men to join the Guard around 1110 CE after the Norwegian Crusade. This ebb and flow of northern blood kept the spirit of the Guard alive, even as its faces changed. The formidable reputation of the Varangian Guard was not simply built on brute strength, but on a unique combination of factors that made them truly formidable. At the heart of their power was their perceived, unwavering loyalty to the emperor. This allegiance, crucially, was directed towards the station of emperor, rather than the individual occupying the throne. This was starkly demonstrated in 969 CE. When Emperor Nikephoros II was assassinated, the Varangians did not seek revenge. Instead, they knelt before his murderer, John Tzimiskes, hailing him as the new emperor. This apolitical nature, stemming from their foreign status and lack of established ties to Byzantine society or internal factions, was a deliberate and foundational aspect of their recruitment. Their primary motivation was the generous payment received from the emperor, and they were periodically rotated out of service to prevent them from establishing local ties that could compromise their impartiality. The profound nature of this loyalty was noted by Byzantine chroniclers. Anna Komnene, the Byzantine princess and historian, described it as a family tradition, a kind of sacred trust that they preserved inviolate. The Byzantines, while often referring to the Varangians as axe-bearing barbarians, Pelakaiphoroi barbaroi, paradoxically relied upon these very barbarians for the most sensitive and critical functions of the empire. Their foreign status meant they did not share the same aversion to orders that native Byzantines might resist due to local loyalties or social connections, such as enforcing severe punishments or arresting aristocrats and church officials. Thus, the perceived uncivilized foreigners became an indispensable tool for upholding the civilized order of the Byzantine Empire, highlighting the profound pragmatism of the Byzantine state in transcending cultural biases for imperial survival and effectiveness. While their loyalty was generally unwavering, there were incredibly rare exceptions, anomalies against centuries of remarkable reliability. Beyond their loyalty, the Varangians were widely celebrated for their sheer ferocity, martial prowess, and devastating effectiveness in battle. They were frequently deployed at critical junctures of a battle, often playing a decisive role in turning the tide. Their combat abilities earned recognition from Byzantine, Western European, and Arab chroniclers alike. They were described as frightening both in appearance and in equipment, attacking with reckless rage, and showing little regard for blood loss or wounds, perhaps even alluding to berserker-like qualities. As heavy infantry, they were particularly effective, often fighting in the traditional Viking shield wall formation, an impenetrable moving fortress of axes and shields. Their military contributions are cemented in history through several key engagements. At the Battle of Chrysopolis in 989 CE, they demonstrated their brutal efficiency, by cheerfully hacking to pieces the fleeing rebel army of Bardas Phokas. They were instrumental in Emperor Basil Theo's decisive victory over the Bulgarians at the Battle of Clydion in 1014 CE, a battle that forever changed the geopolitical landscape. At the Battle of Beroia in 1122 CE, under Emperor John II Komnenos, they famously hacked their way through the Pechenegs' seemingly impregnable wagon circle, collapsing their position and causing a general rout. Even at the legendary Battle of Dyrrhachium, despite some tactical indiscipline, they successfully resisted a furious Norman cavalry charge and shattered the Norman left wing, showcasing a superior effectiveness compared to many other Byzantine infantry units. Their service extended across the empire, from campaigns in Sicily against Arabs and Normans to engagements against Bulgarians, Arabs, and Pechenegs, often under the command of figures as legendary as Harold Hardrada. The Varangians were most famously identified by their massive two-handed axes, often referred to as Danish axes or long axes. These broad-bladed weapons were capable of inflicting horrendous wounds, becoming so emblematic of the Guard that Byzantines frequently called them axe-bearers or pelakiphoroi. While the Byzantines provided them with high-quality armour, including lamella, scale and ringmail, Varangians often supplemented this with some of their own traditional gear, such as Scandinavian swords. When wielding their two-handed axes, they would strap their sturdy shields to their backs for unhindered movement, allowing them to swing with full force. Their arsenal also included spears, javelins, and occasionally the ancient Roman polearm, known as the romphaei. Their striking appearance was further enhanced by practices such as tattooing, with an early 10th century account by Ibn Fadlan describing Russ's Varangians as tattooed from the tips of his toes to his neck. Membership in the Varangian Guard came with exceptional privileges and benefits that were largely unavailable to other soldiers in the Byzantine military. They were handsomely paid and enjoyed exemptions from certain taxes and laws, which significantly elevated their prestige and influence within the Byzantine Empire. A particularly unique and highly motivating privilege was the right of palutasvarf, literally palace pillaging, which allowed them to take as much gold and gems as they could carry from the imperial treasury upon the death of an emperor. This practice directly encouraged more Scandinavians to enlist in the Guard, as many returned home considerably wealthy, bringing back finery and influence. The widespread Greece runestones across Scandinavia, especially in Sweden, serve as tangible memorials to these many fallen warriors, reflecting the significant losses incurred and the profound honour associated with their service in the East. This wealth flow was so substantial that a Swedish law was needed to curb emigration, underscoring the Varangian Guard's significant economic and social impact on their homelands. Their close proximity to the emperor also afforded them significant political influence, often leading them to serve as unofficial advisors and reinforcing the emperor's authority through their formidable presence. Their duties included guarding the imperial palace, the emperor's personal quarters, and the imperial treasury, the very heart of the empire. They also performed crucial ceremonial duties, accompanying the emperor in full armour during public appearances and singing praises in both Greek and Old English during victory processions. Furthermore, they possessed the distinct right to judge and punish offenders from within their own ranks, highlighting their autonomy and trusted status. Several individuals achieved considerable renown during their service in the Guard. Harald Sigurdsson, the Third of Norway, later known as Harold Hardrada, is perhaps the most famous. After fleeing his homeland, he arrived in Constantinople in 1035 CE and participated in 18 battles, fighting against Arabs in Anatolia, Sicily, southern Italy, and Bulgarians under the esteemed General George Maniakes. He earned prestigious court titles such as Manglavites and Spatharocandidatos. His service concluded with imprisonment for misappropriating imperial plunder, though he was released upon Emperor Michael V's dethronement, with saga sources even suggesting he was sent to blind the emperor. Harold eventually escaped in 1043 CE, became King of Norway, and met his end at the Battle of Stamford Bridge in 1066 CE. His exploits significantly shaped the image of the Varangian Guard in later centuries. Other notable figures include the Icelander Bolli Bollason, recognised as the first known Icelander in the Guard, and Kolskegg, another Icelander who attained the rank of Varangian captain. The legacy of these individuals and the many anonymous warriors commemorated on runestones paints a vivid picture of courage, adventure, and the ultimate sacrifice in service to a distant emperor. Yet, even the most formidable of units eventually fades. The Varangian Guard, despite its centuries of distinguished service, gradually diminished, a process inextricably linked to the broader decline of the Byzantine Empire itself. By the late 13th century, a significant shift had occurred. The Varangians had largely become ethnically assimilated by the Byzantine Greeks. This assimilation marked a profound departure from their initial foreign composition, indicating a diminishing influx of new recruits from their homelands and an increasing integration into Byzantine society. The Norse contingent within the Guard began to shrink in the second half of the 11th century, gradually being replaced by Frankish and later English warriors. By the time of the infamous Fourth Crusade in 1204 CE, it is probable that the unit contained few, if any, Scandinavians. The Varangian Guard's strategic value and formidable power were fundamentally rooted in their foreignness and consequent apolitical loyalty. This quality made them immune to the debilitating factionalism that plagued native Byzantine military units. If the very quality that made them indispensable, their lack of local ties and political ambitions, eroded through assimilation, then their unique strategic advantage would inevitably diminish. The declining stream of new recruits from Scandinavia and the eventual shift towards Latin bodyguards for the later Palaeologan emperors further suggest that the original model became unsustainable as the distinct foreign character faded. The Guard's decline was not solely due to external factors like the weakening empire, but also an internal consequence of their long-term presence and integration. The precise timing and detailed reasons for the Varangian Guard's formal dissolution remain somewhat uncertain, largely because they are not hugely frequent in Byzantine sources, and their later history is described as murky. While some sources suggest the unit may have dissolved voluntarily during the chaotic fall of Constantinople in 1204 CE, other accounts confirm their continued, albeit desperate, presence. Varangians were notably involved in defending the city walls during the Fourth Crusade in 1204 CE. Nikitas Choniets, a contemporary chronicler, even expressed the belief that the Tagmaton Varangan alone could have repelled the invaders had it not been for strategic missteps elsewhere. After 1204 CE, with the Byzantine Empire fragmented and scattered by the Crusader conquest, the regiment became increasingly difficult to trace. References to Norsemen became less frequent in the historical record, as the Palaeologan emperors, who ruled the later Byzantine Empire, often relied on Latin mercenaries, mirroring the waning of the Viking era itself. The last specific mention of a Varangian unit in a clear military context appears in the Greek version of the Chronicle of the Morea, which records them escorting the Prince of Achaia to prison after the Battle of Pelagonia in 1259 CE. However, individuals who still identified themselves as Varangians were mentioned in Constantinople as late as 1400 CE, hinting at a lingering identity even if the formal unit was gone. One outlier source even suggests their existence until the final, tragic fall of Constantinople to the Ottoman Turks in 1453 CE. This uncertain and murky historical record suggests that the Varangian Guard did not experience a single, definitive, disbanding event. Instead, it likely underwent a gradual process of decline, assimilation, and diminishing distinctiveness. The description of the heavy stream of axe-wielding warriors becoming a trickle reinforces this idea of a slow fading rather than an abrupt cessation, a unit dissolving more through attrition and integration than by decree. Several factors contributed to the Varangian Guard's decline. The general weakening and gradual decline in the quality and numbers of the native Byzantine army after the reign of Basil II reflected broader imperial decay and an increasing reliance on foreign mercenaries. Crucially, the Viking era had largely passed, meaning the traditional source of their initial, fierce Norse recruits diminished considerably. Russia, another early source of recruits, faced its own struggles with the Golden Horde, further reducing the flow of warriors to Byzantium. As we discussed, the assimilation of Varangians into Byzantine Greek society meant that the distinct foreign character, which was the very basis of their unique loyalty, faded over time. If they became too integrated, they would have lost the political advantage that made them so valuable, transforming them into just another military unit susceptible to Byzantine internal politics. The shift in composition to Anglo-Saxons and other Germanic peoples, while initially bolstering their ranks, also meant a change in the original Viking identity that defined the Guard's early power and mystique. And of course, significant losses in battle, such as those at the disastrous Battle of Manzikert in 1071 CE, where almost all of the Emperor's guards fell around him, would also have impacted the unit's continuity and composition. Despite their eventual disappearance as a distinct military unit, the legacy of the Varangian Guard endures. They are celebrated in Viking and medieval history as a powerful symbol of loyalty, warrior culture, and the complex interaction between the Viking world and the sophisticated Byzantine Empire. Their historical presence is further attested by the numerous runestones found across Scandinavia, particularly the poignant Greece runestones, which serve as tangible memorials to those who served and died in the East, preserving their memory for centuries. These stones are silent witnesses to incredible journeys, fierce battles, and the ultimate dedication of these elite warriors. The Varangian Guard stands as a remarkable testament to the Byzantine Empire's pragmatic and sophisticated approach to military and political stability. From their formal establishment under Emperor Basil II in 988 CE, they served as the Emperor's elite personal bodyguards and formidable shock troops for centuries, their reputation echoing across the medieval world. Their power derived from a unique confluence of factors: their unwavering apolitical loyalty, which stemmed directly from their foreign status, and lack of ties to Byzantine internal factions; their formidable martial prowess, characterised by their iconic two-handed axes and disciplined shield wall tactics; and the significant privileges and prestige they enjoyed, which acted as a powerful magnet, attracting elite warriors from across Northern Europe. This strategic recruitment of outsiders proved to be a brilliant solution to the perennial problem of internal disloyalty that plagued many imperial courts. While their composition evolved over time, shifting from primarily Norsemen and Russes to include a significant Anglo-Saxon contingent, their core role as loyal protectors remained vital. However, as the Byzantine Empire gradually weakened and the Viking Age, which supplied their initial recruits, drew to a close, the Guard underwent a slow process of assimilation into Byzantine society. This integration, while natural over centuries, eventually diminished their distinct foreign character, which was the very foundation of their unique strategic value. Consequently, mentions of the Varangian Guard as a cohesive unit became increasingly sporadic in historical records by the late 13th to mid-14th centuries. Despite their eventual disappearance as a formal military unit, the Varangian Guard left an indelible mark on both Byzantine and Scandinavian history. They symbolise a remarkable cross-cultural exchange, demonstrating how geopolitical necessity could intersect with cultural aspirations to forge a lasting and powerful military force. Their enduring image remains one of unparalleled loyalty and martial excellence, a legendary chapter in the annals of medieval warfare, a story of the Northmen who became the shield of the Emperor. What do you think was the most surprising aspect of the Varangian Guard story? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this journey through Byzantine history fascinating, please give this video a like, subscribe for more historical deep dives, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next adventure. Thank you for watching,